This podcast is sponsored by Notion Refinery, a graphic designer for hire. Go to notionrefinery.com or email contact@notionrefinery.com. This information can be found in the description below. As always, I couldn't do this without your guys' support. If you guys enjoy my content on YouTube, the Twitch streams, the podcast, and all the other interactions that I do, consider becoming a patron. It really does help me focus on the content and not have to worry about paying my bills. So if it aligns with your wallet and you like what I do, consider becoming a patron today. And speaking of patrons, I'd like to give a quick shout out to my patron sponsors. Crush Gaming, thank you again, man, for all you do for me. Chad, thanks, bro. I do appreciate it. Stuart and McJiggles, thank you so much for becoming podcast sponsors. Here we are. Nice to meet you. Francois, how do you pronounce your last name?
Paquet Tremblay. It's French, so French Canadian, so Paquet Tremblay. Yep.
Okay.
You just call me French, so it's fine. Or Frank, whatever.
I have a serious question. Not really.
Yeah.
You have a different name on Discord. What is that? Like
that's my escape from Tarkov.
Ah,
username.
That's your user. Yeah. Okay. Oh,
yeah, okay. That's the my Discord name is actually like my escape from Tarkov game. I'm a huge fan of that game. It's so good.
Yeah, it is a good game. It's a hardcore game. Like
I have like almost 5,000 hours in that game, so I don't consider this hardcore anymore. I don't play it anymore. Like it's too easy.
You just mastered it, yeah.
Oh, it's 5,000 hours. Like basically, if Nikita is watching this video, nerf everything, man. Nerf everything. Like make it back like it was in 2016. But yeah. That's why my name is Tim Heidecker. I'm also a big fan of Tim and Eric, so Tim Heidecker is one of the characters. Yeah.
Okay. I was wondering. I was like, hold on, Francois. Yeah. We're calling him Francois. We're referring to him as Francois. All right. And so for those that don't know, you are a map designer, a level designer for Piranha Games, and you recently joined the team. 2 months, 3 months ago? It's not long, right?
2 months, 3 months ago? Yeah, something like that. Two? I don't know.
Yeah. How is, first off, I guess, before we dive into like this past week, how's that been? I mean, obviously, where do you come, like, as far as like previous work? Do you want to talk about your background a little bit? Like, obviously accepting a job, you were looking for a job, COVID, all this craziness. Like, how's this past year and a half been for you?
It's been amazing. For me, it's been amazing. Oddly enough, and I don't want to sound like an asshole because it is, because I know that a lot of people, it's been hard for a lot of people.
Sure.
Very, very hard. And I hope that everybody that's watching this right now are well and healthy and that their relatives are fine. But for me, it's been amazing. I love work from home. It's the best thing ever. Like, I have ADHD, so that's why everybody at the studio is like, he's super energetic, but it's actually just the ADHD kicking in. I'm never tired, always an energy bomb, so yeah. So for me, it's amazing. Like, I work from home, I wake up, get my coffee, start working, I love it. So I'm actually currently in Toronto, but I'm in Montreal in the meantime because COVID, it's so expensive in here. Might as well move somewhere less expensive. Yeah. So for the past year, I've been working Sleeping Giant, and then when I saw that Piranha Games was hiring, then I applied, and there we are. Before Sleeping Giant, which is a small indie studio, I worked for big studios like Hangar 13, which is the studio that made Mafia 3. On a new project that I can't really discuss. And before that, I worked on Far Cry 5 at Ubisoft. I was like one of the main mission designers for that game. I developed a few missions on Fates region. It was pretty cool experience. And yeah, now I'm in Piranha Games and I'm doing some Mechwarrior games. It's super cool. I love that.
How did you get into level design, map design? How did you get into the industry? Or did you go the QA route? Like, is that how you went? No.
Well, basically, there's two ways to go. Just like you mentioned, there's the QA route and there is the learning route. So basically, what I did was that I essentially have a background in cinema studies. Like, I have like a certificate in script writing and movie script writing and bachelor in arts, which is basically major in cinema studies and major in game design. So minor in game design. So basically, I did my minor in game design in the last year of my major, and then I realized that that's what I wanted to do. Like I'm like, you know what, cinema industry in Quebec, unless you're Denis Villeneuve and you
Yeah.
decide to cross the border, it doesn't work. It doesn't
Right.
work. We do great movies, but they're not gonna earn enough money so that you can live profitably with it. And I wanted something to be secure for my wife, my kids, and well, future kids and stuff like that. So I decided to go with well, what has always been my passion, video games. Like since I was a kid, man, I've been tripping balls on video games. Like
Yeah.
it's my parents refused to buy me a Nintendo 64 until I was 12 years old. Can you imagine that?
Yeah.
Man, it was insane. Like, and yet I was passionate about it. Like I
Yeah.
remember, I would look at the Zeller's Christmas catalog or
Yeah.
whatever it was, just to see like the pamphlets of the video games. I would read the behind of the video games because back in the days it wasn't like today. Pretty sure like the population of Mechwarrior is like mid 30s, 40s,
Yeah.
and like we're all the same. We all bought like the console, and then we would read the booklet in the
Yeah.
car while going back home. Well, that was me. I was a massive fan of video games. So
Yeah.
essentially, what brought me to level design is my passion, and I decided to, following my major, go at the campus Ubisoft, which is an amazing campus. It's a super small school, but they have three main departments that they go in, and it's essentially level design, which I was part of. You have the modeling team, which they're all the modeling things, and animation. So the way it works, it's amazing because it's just 1 year, and then afterwards you're certified that you are a good level designer because it's an acclaimed school. And so what I did is I applied, I got in, and then I set my goals. At the end of the year, when I'm done with this, I'm going to work to Ubisoft and I'm going to do Tremblay games. I'm going to skyrocket. And that's what happened. I was recruited like 3 weeks before the end of the course. And since then, it's been, I'm not even working, I'm having fun.
Yeah.
That's what my motto is. Uh, if I'm not happy, then it's work. And for me, Piranha games is definitely not work. It's
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
I love it.
That's
And the
awesome.
main reason why I always wanted to be a level designer was that it's essentially playing video games, but on a technical level, or playing Legos. Like every level designer you'll ask will tell you, "Oh, dude, you should see my collection of Legos I got for $10,000. It's insane." Even today, if I was rich, I would buy myself Legos every single day, man. It's so cool. Have you seen all the models that are coming
Yeah,
out?
man.
It's
I'm
insane.
jealous. We didn't have that when I was a kid. Like we didn't have it,
Legos?
well, no, the
Oh,
what
the
we have
cool ones.
now. Yeah, what we have
Yeah,
now, like I would have been geeking, like I was nerding out back then with like, oh, it's a
man.
pirate ship. Now you
The
have like
Death
the
Star,
Death
the Death
Star,
Star,
right? All
the
this, yeah. It
the
just, yeah,
Mandalorian thing.
yeah. I
It's
don't know.
insane. Yeah,
Yeah,
I remember going ape shit on the. I got at one Christmas, my parents they got me like the pirate ship,
yeah.
with the you could literally raise the
The
shit.
mast and
What do
all
you,
that. Yeah,
the
yeah,
mass. It was amazing, and
yeah,
even and today it's like this is a joke compared to
yeah,
what they do today. And wow,
yeah.
kids are lucky today, and yet they prefer to play Fortnite compared to this shit. Wow.
Yeah, yeah,
Anyways, but yeah, Lego was one of my sources of inspiration. And to answer your question, essentially, I learned the way uh, through school. But I also did some QA. I started
yeah,
doing some QA for a summer before I went to the level design school, and that got me a foot into the industry because that shows you goodwill. You're
sure.
ready to do a job that is most likely not going to pay you as well as another job. For example, I was a waiter during my university, so that was really well paying. And I decided to go into the QA just to get my foot in the industry. So some people will take that route, and it's as valid, even I would say better than going to school. Because if you're a QA and you're a good QA, you're going to be an amazing level designer because you're going to be able to spot these little details and problems that a level designer that went to school will maybe not have the same baggage and experience in regards to this.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think a lot of people have misconceptions too when they think QA. too. It's like it's a tough job. I mean, you're given a list of things like, hey, go check this. Does
You're
it
not
check?
playing video games.
Yeah, like and it's not like you're giving input like on design or this or that. I mean, I guess maybe sometimes every
Yeah.
once in a while, but
Well,
like
they'll give
it's
their opinion, and it's
yeah,
always valid because they're really an essential part of the
yeah,
team.
yeah, but it's different. Like so
It's a job. It's a job.
yeah,
You're not playing video games because play the same game 40 hours a week for like months on end. You're not gonna be playing it. It's not gonna be fun.
yeah, yeah. I hear
So might as well take a core project that you already like
you.
because
So
otherwise.
why did you choose level design versus everybody wants to be a 3D modeler? You know, everybody wants to create the coolest characters. What drew you to level design? Was it the world creation sort of aspect? Was it that pull
For me, it
or
was the fun factor,
okay?
and the fact that I'm absolute shit at. Like you should see the phone that I tried to do because we had like introduction courses back
Yeah,
at the
yeah, yeah,
campus,
yeah.
which is honestly it's an amazing place. And I struggled for like the whole session to make a phone. And anyways, for me, yeah. Well, I suck at animation. I suck at modeling. So what it leaves me is the best part. I love to create fun, and I've played so many video games that I think that I can see what's going to be fun and what's not going to be fun. And it's also a continuation of my academic studies in cinema because create environments. So essentially, you're just creating a world, and it's essentially playing Legos all over again. So for me, it was level design all the way because there's nothing unfun about my job, um, and it can be so much different from one job to another one because you can be a world designer as well as a mission designer or I don't even know, like there's really or technical level designer which dabbles into the script, as in and for animators I can't pronounce myself because I don't know what it is,
Sure.
and modelers I guess that you can be a character modeler, vehicle modeler. You really like specify yourself into
Sure.
something. Like I have some friends at Ubisoft that are like vehicle modelers. So the guy is nuts about cars.
Yeah.
He fucking loves cars, but he's good at that. So he does cars for Ubisoft,
Yeah.
and that's that. And he likes that. But for me, I don't know if I would like that because what I like about my job as well is that being in level design, there's so much diversity in what you do in a day that it's always fresh, and I never get bored. So that's the main attraction to why I chose level design, and not particularly modeling or animation. Even though like I see what people do,
Yeah.
but I don't know, man. I would feel restrained because I would be good, I think, to model something with my hands, with clay,
Sure.
but
Yeah.
when it comes to a computer, it's like, I don't know, maybe it's the same thing with the mouse and keyboard when I work and all that stuff, but I don't know if I would feel restrained, to be honest.
You don't have that tactile feedback of the Lego piece, you know? Like that's what you're missing, right? You know,
Well,
like
for me, the way I see it is just I would feel it hard because in level design, you're technically imbricking stuff onto stuff. So it's like Legos going
sure.
onto Legos. But with modeling, you're essentially trying to reproduce what your hands would be doing.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard. But anyways, I think that all jobs are really, really interesting. Just go for what you're the best at
Yeah.
because you're never gonna be good at something if you're trying to do something that you're not already good at.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. So obviously you had this passion, you went to
Yeah,
school for it.
yeah,
You took a chance obviously doing QA because again, pay, it's
yeah,
but you put you showed good faith, you got hired, you got into the industry, you've had a multitude of jobs before this. The job opening happens at Piranha Games, you come in. How has that experience been for you? Is this your first time working remote as well? Like as far as
No,
getting
this is my
that
second time
process?
because
Okay.
essentially, when I moved to Toronto, I was due to work on site with Sleeping Giant, but then COVID happened, and then I started working for them fully remote. So this will be my second fully remote job,
Okay.
and honestly, like I said at the beginning, it's super great. And your question was how it's been at Piranha Games?
Yeah. Yeah. Like how
Yeah.
in that just that initial period now for
Yeah,
2 months?
oh, it's been amazing. I mean, the team is great. I love to have the autonomy that I'm given. So basically, I'm the only level designer right now working in Mechwarrior Online, and I really enjoy it because honestly, like I have free reign, and they told me basically like we trust you, so do your best, and that's essentially what we're trying to. But also, it's also really cool because I'm working on things that I'm looking forward to play because I've been playing MechWarrior Online for like I don't know maybe that was before BattleTech when it came out, so that must be
Okay.
like 3 years or so.
Yeah.
And I got into this first because of the books. I read the whole saga of the Grey Death Legion because I've
Yep.
always been a fan of like science fiction movies and books. And dude, that got me so
Yeah.
much into it because it's so cool the way they describe it and the AC that's shooting and then the heat and all the lore that comes with it. It's so damn cool. I love science fiction, but I really like the fact that MechWarrior is like a bunch of things that is like from a past and it's part of the present, but it's like archaic and it's really cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, in terms of like the job, it's been wonderful. Like working with Darren, Matt, the whole team. Honestly, I couldn't have picked up a better job. It's really really cool. And designing maps the way I want to design them and having free reign is the best. Yeah.
Yeah. And speaking of, I guess we can go dive in this past Tuesday. And since Tuesday,
Mhm.
everybody's been playing one of your pieces of work, and that's the
Yeah.
Canyon Network.
Oh, but it's not only my work; it's also the work of the Cauldron
Right.
because we've
Right.
discussed about it a lot, a
Yeah.
lot, a lot, and it's always everything that you guys are going to see in the maps is a reflection of what ultimately we feel the community wants, and it's no
Okay.
longer PGI decides what's going to happen, even though we have the last word, to be honest. It's what the community wants is what we're aiming at. Basically, this is our mandate.
So speaking of that relationship, you
Yeah,
obviously have the creative freedom and
yeah.
the maybe what you feel. What is that relationship with the Cauldron? What does that bring? What are you getting from them that you find so useful?
Immense knowledge. It's insane. It's like I compare it to um, if I was working as a consultant for um, Escape from Tarkov, for example. I have 5,000 hours played. I think that I can, and most of the guys in Cauldron have almost that amount of
Or
hours.
a
Fucking
lot
insane.
more. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
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 It's even older than Tarkov. So like, I consider myself an expert at Tarkov. So you would ask me like, what would you change in that map? Well, I can pinpoint you exactly at the precise centimeter. Like
Yeah.
this doesn't work. This doesn't work. This works. This is cool. This leads to a problem because there's only 2 access points, and it leads to like choke points that are not fun to play in. This is not cool. This is not cool. This needs to be reworked. It's essentially I would know exactly to the exact moment what needs to be done in order to make it better. Like for example, interchange, the inside lighting needs to be redone completely. It's horrible, terrible. The transition between the outside to the inside, it's ugh. But anyways, the Cauldron is essentially that.
Yeah.
It's like me giving the best information that a developer could get times X amount of people that we have in the Cauldron, and this is invaluable. Like I love the Cauldron. Like for
Yeah.
me, it's just like everything that a level designer could wish for. That's this.
Yeah. And I can just see it, and you're passionate about it, and then I can see the passion from those guys as well. And I consider myself, I'm an observer of the Cauldron, because like I may comment and stuff, but like
Yeah.
my place in this community is to report on stuff, ask questions.
Mhm.
That's how I look at like my place, and that's where I love being right now.
Yeah, it's
And
a good spot.
I see you guys often all the time talking about stuff, and then I started seeing images right off the bat as soon as you came in. You were already having meetings with them. I wasn't there. Unfortunately, I was out like literally running, but I was
Mhm.
reading the cliff notes afterwards, and and then talking to Navid and Bearclaw and,
Mhm.
and Darren and stuff, and they're like, "Oh yeah, he's like on it. He already knows." Like we started talking, and he's like, yeah, I don't, this ramp, and so I think a lot of people, and I hope this podcast sort of translates, that having a passion like you do is going to come through in the work. And since Tuesday, luckily I have been able to play it, and I've had such unique interactions on the map. And so that's what I was wanting to ask you as a level designer. How are you approaching these maps? Because you didn't create them ultimately, but you're coming in and you have obviously maybe your design philosophies, and then you're also working with the Cauldron. How has this process been? Can you go through the process of what's in your mind, talking about Cauldron, because that's of course the first map.
So in regards to Canyon Network, basically my mandate was to sit down with the Cauldron and see what can be done to annihilate NASCAR. We don't want to see NASCAR anymore.
Sure.
I understand why they hate it, and it was just a process of like back and forth. For Canyon Network, I came in, I looked at Canyon Network, and obviously I already knew what was going on, what was the problem, because like I've been playing a lot, more recently as well, Mechwarrior, and for me it was just like super clear, like we need ramps. Like Canyon Network was extremely problematic because it felt like playing a 90s game, because it was extremely punishing in the way that the 90s game were. In the 90s, you would be playing like a game. It would be super hard. It would punish you, and it wouldn't be like holding its punches back. So, for example, in Canyon Network, the reason why I'm saying there needed to be ramps is that I don't play with jump jets. I think that they're a waste of space, a waste of tonnage, and they're not fun. It's fine. I get that some people like to like hop in the air, shoot their PPC. I see you play. I know what you're doing. I hate that. Yeah. I hate that. I'll go toe to toe with someone, brawl, and then shoot my missiles in his face. I love this. The intensity of the moment, dude, it's exhilarating. It's so cool. So what I wanted was to make sure that we had better fights happening in Canyon Network. No longer NASCAR. And the main thing that we decided to do was sit down together, and I asked them, what do you want? What do you guys want me to do? Essentially, like, your wishes are my orders. And essentially, we started talking about this. I already knew that there was many problems regarding the NASCAR and already with the ramps. So essentially, we went with like more ramps, more accessibility, and then we decided to remove the main problems that were the two central pieces, rocks, and adding more cover, kind of in the, I call it the debt ravine, where like you have like the central piece, and then like there's like the team 2 is climbing up while team 1 is already there and just pouring on them. And so that's why we added more cover there, as long as at the same time as bridges, which may change in the future. I don't know. We're still looking at the kind of like player behavior. We want to see like what is working, what is not working. We might space them even more. But then again, it was a really cool back and forth between the Cauldron and I. For example, and it wasn't just during the meetings. It was always as we went during the production, because, for example, I would have a quick question regarding a simple aspect of the map in itself, and I would just take a screenshot of my monitor, send it to Discord and the Cauldron, and then talk back and forth with the guys. What do you guys think about this and that? Would you prefer to have that? Sometimes I would call Navid, and then we would be talking, and I would be showing him my screen, because I do really esteem Navid and the whole team, but I think that he's like the kind of like, he knows it all. That guy's like,
he's very
wow.
He's cerebral.
Yes. All of his opinions are extremely well thought, and when he talks, you know that he's thought about it for a while, and it's great. And I think that it's how basically we processed. For Polar Highlands, it was different, because essentially Polar Highlands.
Let's wait on that one. Let's not talk about Polar just yet. Pause on that. No, I'm totally like, we're gonna talk about that. But like you mentioned, I talk a lot about this on my stream, and that is NASCAR and how much of NASCAR is player behavior because of
Yeah.
balance changes that happen? Maybe it nerfs one end of the spectrum, so another, like faster mechs get faster, but slower mechs are more vulnerable. Or how much is it map design? A lot of the things that I noticed in a lot of the maps that are probably the worst for NASCAR have a lot of central locations with a lot of like no man's land. Obviously, Canyon Network was also corkscrewing. How much of Canyon Network, and when you talk about NASCAR, do you feel like there has to be like a sweet spot, or is it like when you talk about NASCAR, how do you feel like you're going to eliminate it or reduce it? Is it based on sight lines? Is it based on those covers and being able to like when you talk about that, can you just sort of dive into that a little bit more?
Well, to be honest, I think that it's just a mix of everything. In regards to NASCAR, what I would say is simply that it's a result of a lack of cover, if I can say, because you essentially NASCAR is you stick, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you stick to a main cover that will provide you an angle of
Sure.
defense,
Yep.
and you rotate around it so that you will never get hits. For example, in Canyon Network, you had the two main rocks, so players would just be like going around it, technically half NASCARing it, and they were doing putt shots and nonstop. So basically, I think that if you spread around cover, but in a way that both teams are advantaged or disadvantaged, then it forced people to actually do aggressive plays. We've been seeing that in Canyon Network recently. With new changes, people they don't stick in basically the old Canyon Network. You would have people on the two main rocks in the middle, and then you would have other people that would be in the ridges, like a rope in the back. So now, instead of having that and having the constant rotation of people going around and round and round, now what you're going to have is kind of like strategies of people forming up and grouping up and actually taking initiative. Because right now, the main the main thing with Canyon Network is if you climb up onto the plateaus, you're going to get shot because there's minimal cover. So now the fights will often happen in the trenches and on the sides of the trenches where people are actually going to go, and they're going to basically use the trenches as a transition instead of as a main combat zone. And to answer your question, I think that it's to fix NASCAR. It's simply to force the player into different strategies. It's essentially that.
Yeah, and allow those different strategies to be able to actually work. I see where because like if you don't have if you have huge sight lines, then obviously like sniping is going to be really great. But if you don't have any ability to like move from there to there, then short range has no chance to be able to.
No, exactly, and that's the problem with Polar Highland.
Okay, so let's go at obviously Canyon. I'm super excited. I guess from my experiences so far, I've seen wildly crazy matches, including today where
super violent, like
that. But also,
violent to a point.
Yeah, but I'm fighting on parts of the map that I normally never fight on, which is really cool. It's not like And then also I've been countered. We've been countered. Where a team will set up, use actual range, like you can actually use range now in Canyon. It's quite interesting. Obviously, only a few days out from launch, so I usually don't give like a consensus like this is my verdict.
No, it's too fresh to be
too fresh. But my initial like reaction was, wow, this is interesting, like very interesting, and the combat that's happening is interesting, and I feel like just like with anything else that trickles down from the top as far as like meta, how to approach the map is going to take some time because we're going to find strategies like, oh, well, if they do this, then we have to do this to counter. Or if they set up on this, this is where we have to go. And I feel like that's still out. So all I know is it's been fantastic. But when I've been talking to my stream, I started seeing images of Polar, and I released that screenshot live when you gave it to me. And I was telling people ahead of time, I was like, I don't want to spoil anything. That's not my place, but it is a massive undertaking. And so let me first ask you, You mentioned your mandates at the beginning of for Canyon was to help sort of NASCAR. Polar NASCAR really isn't an issue on Polar, except when you come to like the Dom point, and then because you had to get in, and people sometimes would rotate. What were you looking at when making changes to Polar? Like, what was your objective there?
Make it fun.
That's easy, right?
Yeah, like look at it, like if you look at the map, the top-down map, it's basically you have nothing in the middle. It's a big nothing in the middle, and you're apparently supposed to capture that point. How do,
Yeah.
I play a brawler. Like I play brawler. Let me tell you, man.
Yeah.
Playing Polar Highland is not fun for a brawler.
Yeah.
No, it's not. And it's just I don't know, man. I feel like this map is great. It's a great map, but there is room for improvement, and I think that the main thing that we wanted to add was more cover. There's no cover in Canyon North,
Especially
and
even the
not Canyon North,
trenches.
the Polar Island.
Yeah, there was no, even the trenches didn't really provide cover. Like that was like,
It's because basically the trenches are kind of deep, but then again, the cover that they provide you is simple. It's simple elevation, so it's going to protect you from the lasers, but it's not going to protect you from like the LRMs.
Yeah.
So like, no matter what class you are, if you get tagged, you're done. It's finished. It just goes like, and then after like a minute or two of you going like, oh, come on, and you seeing your Meg flashing everywhere and die. Oh man, I'm always trying to think because I'm working as well with like the Cauldron and they're all pro players, but I'm also trying to think about the new guys out there.
Sure.
Imagine it's your first match, you play a brawler, you're like, it's gonna be fucking cool, man, I'm gonna love it, and then you go on Polar Highland and you get shit on. Literally. You're like, what is this game?
Yeah.
But it's not a reflection of what the entire game is, because like you can have amazing fights in other places. But the thing that was a problem in Polar Highland was cover. There's no cover.
It was always interesting. Okay.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say it was always interesting to me when you zoomed out and then you realized there's
nothing.
Terrain. There's terrain everywhere around, but in the like there was nothing, and I was like I wonder, like
in the middle, there's nothing.
Yeah, there's not just the terrain. Yeah, and then and so obviously you talked about trenches and cover. In the image that you released, there are bases now, and one like in the middle. There's buildings. There's
you
cover.
Also
there's
have two mountains.
Yeah.
In which you'll have capture points as well. Dude, this map is gonna be great.
Yeah.
And all of the polar, basically, it's the same map because. What I essentially did is I increased the amount of inclination of the trenches and the depth of the trenches, but I've also spread them in a way that they're not aggressive trenches, but they're going to be defensive, where you use them as movement. For people that are actually doubting it, I have a model in the map with the annihilator model, and I'm trying it to suit that the little head that's popping out everywhere. You're going to be able to see over the trench like a submarine, but you shouldn't be able to get shot. Maybe you're gonna be unlucky and get headshot, but that's not my fault.
Yeah.
It's people that are skilled. But then again, how does that happen often? But anyways, back to the map. Essentially, the new Polar Highland is going to be like a mega complex in this military complex in which you're gonna have trenches. You're gonna have two kind of like plateaus on the northern and southern part of the map that are facing each other, but are also flanking the main base. You also have two huge mountain complex where you have like two capture points, like I mentioned. And in the center, you're going to have like the connection of all these bases, all these plateaus that are surrounding it. So I'm really looking forward to see like what's going to happen with this map, because now we're going to go from a map that had absolutely zero cover to a map that is going to be more like military urban warfare.
Gotcha.
Because the trenches usually always have an exit point, and if you go out of the trenches, you're going to be in the normal Polar Highland. Because it's essentially the same thing, except that basically now trenches are the safe zone, and as soon as you emerge from a trench, this is the danger zone.
Gotcha.
So
But
this is
they
going to be really cool.
but they're gonna allow you to reposition and flank and maneuver
Yep.
where like before you really couldn't to some extent. And I bring the connection back to a map that I really like, which is Rubelite,
Yep.
because Rubelite it's got the verticality, different levels, but then like
Yep.
if someone is sniping or using long range, you may pop up and they may see you, but they have a very small window to, and then you can maneuver and okay, well, which direction did you go? And I always use that as a reference, but like I feel like another key thing to ask you, which is how are the game modes going to play? Because that's one of the factor. Even when we were talking about Canyon game modes on Polar, I felt like Polar was weird when it came to Conquest because it went in a big circle, and all that did was, especially just sometimes like you'll spawn without a light, but the enemy team has like a light and then or two, and you win the fight, but then you lose the war because you could just get out.
Yeah, they run and they outcap.
Just circle, just a big circle. So like when it comes to game modes, how are you tackling assault and skirmish or domination and conquest? How are you tackling that?
Well, skirmishes. First of all, would be skirmish. It's a simple
just whatever
match, so we don't really care about that one. Of course, we care about it, but it's like it's not going to change the mod. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. When it comes to domination, and then we have conquest, it's essentially, and we're not going to talk about incursion because it's removed from that.
Oh, no incursion.
Yeah.
I like this. I hate incursion. Let's talk about that later. That's yeah.
Personally, I like it though. I like the mode, but I think that needs some tweaking. But let's talk about that later. So essentially, going back to Polar Highlands, the reason why I designed Polar Highland the way it is right now is essentially that I base myself on what is good in Mechwarrior right now. And if you look at the really good maps, there's a lot of verticality. Rubelite Oasis is one of them. Canyon Network is another. I would even say maybe Grim Plexus and Tourmaline Desert because they do have a lot of the terrain really changes in height. Sure. But Polar Highland was just a simple 2D map, basically. It was essentially a flat area where you had small inclinations that would allow you to navigate. So my main goal in here was to increase the verticality inside of the level. So how could I do this without actually dramatically change the map? It kind of seemed obvious to me to add more plateaus because in itself, highlands are deemed as plateaus, mountainous regions, and stuff like that. And then how could I increase even further the verticality of that map without creating massive mountains, which wouldn't actually make any sense, and it would be just a replica of Frozen City, because Frozen City is essentially this with a
huge valley.
Yeah, huge valley. That will change a lot. That map will change a lot as well. I don't like that. The middle doesn't have any cover. Then again, this is another thing that will change a lot in Mechwarrior Online in the next months. There's going to be more cover because more cover means less NASCAR because you're turning around the middle. And then it also means more engagement, less LRMs, less peek and shoot. It's going to be like face on face. Like if you look at the books and you read at the books, the mech warriors, they don't fight up to, like 1,000 meters. In the books, it's not that. They fight like 100 meters and they can even hear the machine from the other guy. It's super violent. And I'm trying to get to that point where Mechwarrior is not heavily influenced, if I can say, by the books, but I feel that it should also in a certain way represent it. And if I can get close to this, then I'll feel accomplished.
Sure.
So to answer your question, I think that the main reason why I added and modified so much Polar Highland was to get closer to the other big hits of Mechwarrior Online, which were Rubelite, which is extremely vertical, and Canyon Network. And like I was saying, to increase the verticality, I went both ways. I increased the depth of the trenches and the network of it as well, because you're going to have like basically the players are going to spawn west and east and west, whatever side you're looking at. And there's essentially defensive trenches network that are going to lead to the mountain and then further to the main bases in the middle. So essentially how it's going to work is that players, no matter where they're going to spawn, they're going to be able to quickly access the middle of the map while being in a safe environment, but also being able to peek out and look around. But then it's going to give them a clear direction as to where to go. Because right now in Polar Highland, the thing is, you never know where you're going to go. It's always going to be in the middle, kind of. But that's your guess. But now it's clear that your objective is to go into the middle and fight your way through. And I think that all of the modes in this game, in this map, are going to be amazing. Because if you look at the center of the map, it's not an elevation point. It's actually like people are going to be brawling in that area for the domination. Because what's going to happen is that all surrounding that area, you have elevated plateaus. So what it means is that you really need to use the buildings to your advantage. But the buildings are big enough so that the NASCAR is not possible. And also, I really like that. I put sniping positions on both sides of the middle so that NASCAR will not happen. Because if you want a NASCAR, you're going to get shot in the ribs by the guys that are both on the left and the right. So this is going to be amazing. So that's for domination. Now, what I really wanted to see in Conquest was something where you would have different environment, but there are also different play styles. So for example, in Conquest, how it's going to happen is that you're going to have 2 cap points, one on each of the big mountain area. And this is a really strong point. So like each team will capture their point because it's the closest to the base. It's not a free cap, but it's still there. And they're actually, if you leave like 2-3 mechs there, they could almost fight off, I'd say 4 to 5 mechs because they have heavy high ground and they're able to actually see from a long distance afar players that would be coming in. But that at the same time also promotes the use of the trenches, because if they use trenches, then they can have minimal cover. Because try to assault the mountain with like no cover when you're trying to go there. It's gonna not be possible. But in this case, it's going to be interesting because both caps are going to be on elevated positions. Then afterwards, you have the middle cap, which is going to be at the same place as the domination map. And then finally, you're going to have 2 other caps that are going to be right behind the 2 sniping positions, west and north and south of the map. This is going to be super interesting to see because essentially both teams can control 1 point. There's going to be a middle point that is going to be heavily contested. But there's also the side points, which are north and south, that can be used at an advantage.
So when it comes to the game modes, all maps are different, and all maps, how you tackle objectives, they're secondary as well, right? The first is kill the enemy mechs, and you know, or it can help force the fight. Again, Conquest, like, oh, they got 3, they got 4. We either need to finish this really quick, or we need to start like hitting. That's the whole point of those. Do you feel that any of the game modes need to be adjusted on a per map basis? Like, you know, like does Dom need to be bigger or could be smaller? Like, what are your thoughts on the game modes in general? And just when it comes to like Polar or Canyon and what you're doing, do you feel like Dom on Polar should be a little bit different than Dom on Canyon, or should just be the same mechanic across board?
I think it should be the same mechanic across board. It's going to be different by the way it's going to be different is by the layout of them. Polar Highland, even though it's going to be played the same way mechanically as Canyon Network, will be totally different. It won't feel like Canyon Network, and people won't play it like Canyon Network because it's totally different. Canyon Network has an elevation point for the capture point, which is in the middle where there used to be the big 2 stones. And then Polar Highland, it's actually in the middle of a valley. Well, kind of valley surrounded by plateaus. So technically, I wouldn't really change the mechanics because they work. People know how it works. If you start playing, if you start modifying these mechanics and then we start tweaking the numbers, people might become confused by them and then they might lose interest.
And new players, like you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, exactly. You need to stick to your guns and keep it as understandable as possible. And I think that we have a winning solution right here. Capture, like essentially domination. Well, Conquest is like Conquest is domination in Call of Duty, and like you know what it is. But I think that these modes are classics. You don't need to understand. It's instinctive. You know, you play a skirmish match, you know how to win. You kill the guys. You play domination, well, you see the circle instinctively, even though you've never played it, you guess that I gotta stand in the circle for it to win.
Yeah.
And then conquest, I mean, you got points on the map. It's easy to understand. It's a no-brainer. So I think that no, I wouldn't change the game modes and make it. Well, I mean, if we had the resources and we had like billions of dollars to do that, yes, of course, I would love to have like um, different modes with different maps. But then again, it would no longer be domination. It would be something else.
How do you feel about the maps? Let's take Polar, for example, or Canyon.
Mm-hmm.
Canyon. That maps may be slightly altered, either through terrain geometry or added environmental artwork based on the game mode. How do you feel about that? As far as like, so you have Conquest on Canyon, but on Dom, maybe you want to add a building here or building. Like, how do you feel about that? And should maps be slightly different based on the game mode themselves?
I think that if we had the resources, I would tend to say yes.
Okay.
However, I don't think that right now this would be in the mandate, because our mandate right now is to make it fresher, make it more accessible to new players and more fun for pro players.
Okay.
When we are done with this first pass, as I call it, I think that it could be explored.
Okay.
But then again, that depends not only about me, but about
Sure.
plenty of other factors that are out of my control. But if it was up to me, I would eventually, I mean, once Mechwarrior Reborn is done, who knows what can happen? You know,
Sure.
you create new modes and stuff like that. It really depends on how the population picks up and
Yeah.
goes. You know, so yeah, I'd be inclined to do that. But then again, if I was to do that, maybe I would also be inclined to create new types of gameplay. So
Yeah.
maybe not domination. Incursion could be like a kind of mode where you have one team that has to attack a fortress. You know,
Yeah.
the kind of gameplay that you would see in Wolfenstein Return to Castle, the D-Day assault where you would attack like a bunker. The team had to plant a bomb in order to get access to the bunker. Then it would be a trench warfare, and then it would lead afterwards to another set of the military German base. So like
Sure.
you're playing in a different environment, but you're progressing kind of in a way that Battlefield has brought us.
Yeah.
Their new maps, you know, you're pushing
Rush.
through zones.
Yeah, Rush.
Yeah, kind of like Rush.
That's
Yeah.
sort of, I think that's sort of the idea of like incursion. I don't know if you know this, but incursion was supposed to be a asymmetrical attack defend game mode. What you're talking about too, sort of sounds like you need respawns that would really help that faction play or already has respawns. That's what they are. That's like, I don't know why like it always be like that's what they are. They're respawns. Like, yeah, like, oh, it's a drop deck. No, it's respawns. That's all it is. That's the only difference. But let me bring you back on track of the current maps. What, obviously we got Polar coming out. I know Darren does not want to put any pressure on your shoulders to like have to like, oh, Francois is gonna do 2 maps so a month or whatever. But
yeah, no,
this
is not possible. Not 2 maps a month.
Yeah, so like looking from the rest of the year, obviously May here we have Canyon, June I'm assuming Polar-ish.
Yep.
No commitments I guess on that. Looking forward to July. Do you already have a map in mind? Also, what maps do you feel like if you would tackle one, why do you feel it needs your attention right away? Like, why would you pick one map, and what would that map be?
Well, if I had to pick one map in particular and change it, it would be,
like you mentioned Frozen, but then we talked about HPG. We mentioned Caustic. Like, how do you feel about those?
personally, I would go maybe for HPG. Yeah, that'd be a smooth month, because Polar was extremely there was a lot to do. HPG would be an easy fix. I would just go through it, delete the center of the map, redo it completely, and then like that's something that is more intricate. Like the middle part of the map is interesting, but I think that this could be replicated in multiple areas throughout the center of the map instead of having one big single king of the hill spot.
Yeah.
I would also fix things like, for example, like mechs that are able to run around the walls, the outer walls. I hate that. I've seen you do that, I think. I hate that. Yeah, I hate that.
Calling it.
Yeah,
like the shadow cat being up there or something like that. Yeah.
This is something that I'm telling you guys, this is going to happen. I'm gonna close it so that this no longer happens because this is not fun. This is not fun. It's the same thing. Like we had a discussion regarding this special little things that like pro players know about, but casual players don't. I hate these little silly things that is. For example, in Canyon Network, you have like this little rubble, kind of like it goes down from like you have the plateaus, and then you have a little line of rubble. And then pro players do know that you can climb this.
Yeah, you got to wiggle.
Yeah. You're weighing 70 tons. Do you really think that in real life your mech would be able, with his clunky feet, to go wiggle on that ledge and climb up? No, that doesn't work. This is the kind of things that will go eventually.
Yeah.
I don't like that. I don't like the fact that like players are essentially using the map's weakness in order to gain an advantage on unassuming players.
Oh,
that is
exploitation.
It's an exploitation of the map. It is. But it's a visual cued exploit, but
sure.
Like,
but I think
to try it to decipher it.
In defense of that, I would say the player would then say, well, if you don't give me an opportunity, if there's no ramp that I can get it, this is my only way to access because I don't have jump jet. Right? Yeah.
But then again, we find solutions to that.
Yeah.
Like I'm not saying it's gone and I'm not going to replace it.
You're not a horrible person for doing it.
No.
I understand why you're doing it, but let's fix those so you don't have to do those.
So basically, I don't want to be playing like in the old Canyon Network, a game where I'm going to have to either wiggle my way back up or walk 2 minutes.
Yeah.
In order to come back and then be facing 7 mechs that are waiting for me essentially because this is what happens. The most of the time when you play like let's say an Annihilator, you would be playing an Annihilator in Old Canyon. By the time you've reached a plateau, if you fall off one of these, it's done. Yeah. It's done.
If you even got the opportunity to get there, because spawn locations, you get rushed and Zerg rushed and GG, it's over.
Talking about spawn location, the skirmish spawns are going to change. They're going to be the same as the other modes, so that's going to be interesting as well. But yeah, like I said, it's not because I'm going to be removing things that I deem to be unrealistic and kind of like meta that I'm not going to be fixing them. Because if I'm removing something, then I'm going to be adding something that's going to be a plus value.
It always bothered me. It did bother me because it was like, you know.
It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, well, from a game design like standpoints, it's like that doesn't make any sense. But also, it's like you're not giving me an alternative to do. So like they're gonna do it. Going back to you mentioned up on the HPG, you know, the rim and stuff. Some would call that a tactic though, because there are, you know, dual PPC Shadowcat. The whole purpose is to be that ninja, to be that flanker going to skirmish, going and getting those back shots. And if you leave them alone.
But then again, if you look at the mini map, if it was intended, then there wouldn't be the out of bounds zone that is almost on it.
Yeah.
You know, you look at the mini map that it's the designer clearly intended to restrain the access to this point. But the problem is there's still a little bit of space, like that little ledge that people like to run on, that you're outside, but I'm not, and then you start shooting at people. I'm sorry, but that's like
I don't know.
You're pulling on the elastic right now.
I know, I know like 2 dedicated Shadowcat pilots right now that are like raging at you, and
but that's fine. I mean, it's not because I'm going to remove this and I'm not going to add high points in the new HPG.
So you're not. See, that's the thing.
Because it's not because, like I said, we're like the new mentality of PGI is not 1 step forward, 2 step backwards. It's community wants something, but we're also going to make sure that some things are going to go as well.
Yeah, I think
we want to make you guys happy, but we also want to make sure that the maps are interesting and not exploited in a way that it kind of bums you out. Because let's say you're playing the game, you're in HPG, you're having fun, and you get double PPC'd in the face. You don't even know where it came from. You're like, but due to the inclination, you can't even shoot him.
Yeah.
Man, that's not fun.
I think I've talked a lot about this on my stream. My least favorite map right now is HPG, and for a variety, it's boring. It's the same gameplay every single time, because of spawns as well. You've got
the spawn don't have much to do to that.
Well,
I disagree, but it's always that people converge in the middle because it's the central piece.
Well, I'm saying it's a bummer because sometimes the one spawns right now, your assaults get dropped there. So as they're coming in, that other side,
you're getting shot at. Yeah,
they're already getting shot. That's what I'm saying is like, so you may be out like, and a lot of the times what I do is like, hey guys, we need to go help them out, or else we're gonna be down 2 assaults, and then we might as well just GG. But it's like, to me again, it's this philosophy that a lot of the Caustic Valley, Canyon Network, HPG, that have these central pillar points, and then it's just this like around it's just you're forced to like, hey, I need this cover, but they're pushing, so I have to rotate this way because I can't go right because there's no cover.
Yeah, but then again, look at Caustic Valley. It's a big crater in the center, which is a circle. What the people are going to do? NASCAR. It's a circle.
Yeah.
It's a circle. Look at Canyon Network. It's a circle. Polar Highland. It's a circle.
Yeah.
Look at the map design. If you top down it, it's a circle.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's exciting to hear from a lot of like people they're listening to this, because that's been something that I feel like makes the gameplay very stagnant as well. And like you said, I've only had 2 days on the new, and I've had some crazy experiences on Canyon where I'm like, I don't even know what's going on right now. And that's fun because I'm like, I've never experienced that before, at least not since I started playing the game, and that was 9 years ago, right? So like,
and I've come up with maybe like an idea that I might try to exploit in the next patches, but like eventually what I might do is just ninja add like something that happened in the map. I could 1 month it's going to be, I don't know, June, we're going to be releasing Polar Highland, but let's say in 6 months I decide, well, there's a ship that just crashed in Polar Highland and it just ravaged the middle part of the map. People, and it's going to be a ninja thing. People, I'm not going to be calling it. We're not going to be promoting
it.
Nothing. Yeah. I'm just going to drop it and just to break
Fortnite
the habit of people.
Yeah, Fortnite.
As
far as like, where they'll have events where like it'll disrupt
it keeps
stuff.
it fresh.
Yeah, I love it. And
I think that there's things that we can do.
Yeah. I had a question. It had to do with the use of tunnels is interesting.
Yeah.
We have a lack thereof. The original sort of Frozen City has this little small one. It was quite interesting because it was actually used quite extensively early on. But then we had, at the time it was modules, but Seismic came out. And Seismic, when it first came out, was broken because like it was like, it gave you, I think it was like 450 meters around you. So like it destroyed any flanking ability. You'd be like, oh yeah, they're going through the tunnel. Do tunnels intrigue you, or do you see you adding any of those to any future or even in current maps? Any of that? Because we don't really see them being used very often. Like for instance, Crimson gets brought up a lot, where we have tunnel on one side and we don't have any other path, on the other and stuff. And so it's always been like speculation, like, oh, what if you had maybe multiple tunnels on different, verticality and this and that? Like, what are your thoughts on the use of tunnels?
I think that it's extremely tricky because tunnels are going to be like trenches, but with a rooftop. And essentially what happens is that the problem is you're going to be forced to commit, because if you don't commit, the other team's going to see that like, oh, he's backing up, he must be damaged, let's just keep on pushing. Sure. And essentially what happens is that it's a short battle and you have massive loss on both sides, and then the remaining guys that didn't come in finish the job, and it's whoever was the most ballsy or the most armored up that won the battle in the middle. That won't be, I don't know. To be honest, I don't think that tunnels would be a good amount of fun. However, high ceiling caverns are something that are kind of fun though, because it also still allows you to have like these stalactites, stalagmites that will give you cover, but it also allows you to restrain the amount of LRM that can be used, but still they can be used in some areas of the cavern. and it leaves enough place for like natural exit points. Because
Okay.
if you have tunnels, like for example, I think it's River City, or no, it's Crimson. I don't know the place.
Crimson has
I remember
the city map, and then Forest
the one with
Colony.
the tunnel, the one with the tunnel, and then you have like the, I call it the horse saddle. You know?
Yeah, that's Crimson. Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Crimson. You look at the tunnel in it; it's super large, and there's like a Y shape in it. But other than that, I don't know, man. I don't.
I
I
guess
wouldn't.
I guess more
It's
I'm
either you
asking.
commit in it or you don't,
Yeah,
and you defend it
I'm more
because it's a choke
asking
point.
as like the ability to like have tunnels to be able to maneuver to different parts of the map and be able to like, like you shoot and engage someone and then you drop off and then you go underneath and you pop up somewhere else and you're like a
Yeah,
different. Like,
but then
I
again,
guess
the problem that comes with it is that what happens when you're 11 kills out of 12, and then you have that light mech that is just running inside of the tunnels and then just like wasting your time.
yeah, you go and up a cap point,
Yeah,
right? Like that's yeah.
exactly. But if you're not, you see, I think the tunnels are interesting just in terms of like short distance,
Sure.
but I wouldn't count on uh, an increased amount of tunnels
Okay.
in the game because they don't support the gameplay that we're trying to
Okay.
promote.
But
And
maybe
to
a
be
big.
honest, well, you already kind of have like partial tunnels in Canon Network. Like
Sort of, yeah.
I don't call them tunnels, but like the spawn points.
Yeah.
It used to be like a single plateau. Now it's like two plateaus that are connected with a bridge.
Yeah.
Now you have these kinds of like mini kind of like under tunnel kind of. It's far stretched. It's like it's like
were
saying
talking about
HPG borders are fine.
Yeah, you talk about caves. The original Forest Colony has a cave,
Yeah,
and it was
but then
always
again,
very
it's
unique, but it's very
yeah, but
small.
it's not fun. It's too
Well,
tight.
and back in the day, we had a problem because teams could just go in there, and then there was no like you'd be playing skirmish, and it's like, well, I'm not going in there. You go first. Well, I'm not going in there.
Yeah,
You go first. Well,
exactly.
we're
Yeah.
just gonna stay out here, and there was no mechanic to force that, especially because
Yep.
that yeah.
Yeah.
So I can understand the negative sometimes gameplay that can occur because of player behavior, right? So so obviously moving forward, you talked about HPG, you talked about that. Is there anything else that you want to tell the community out there? Obviously fun is your primary factor, which I think is fantastic. I think it's fantastic also hearing you talk about new players, because I feel like that's something that myself included, I'm aware
Oh,
of.
it's a huge part. It's a
Yeah.
huge part of the community.
Well,
I
there's
mean, look
a
at
lot of new players right now.
not
People
only
don't.
that, the
Yeah.
stats. Look at the
Yeah.
stats. People don't play. Not a lot of people play faction play, even though it's a really great mode. But people want to play like new players who play quick play, and essentially it's super accessible. It's super easy to understand. And new players, they just go and click and they select their mech. They go. It's fun.
Yeah.
And generally speaking, like I've been reading the forums and I've been going at Reddit, and what I like to see is new players giving their opinion, and because it's a fresh opinion, they don't know anything about the game. So like sometimes it can be silly, but oftentimes like their ideas are really good.
Yeah.
So it's never I don't know. I think that
It's the honest truth. That's what I look at it, because it's brutally honest. Because like if a new player is like, well, I shot my weapons and I just shut down. Well,
what happened?
What? So that then my question is, okay, does the tutorial not cover ghost heat? Or heat scale. That's what the technical term is. But like, so like, is that that's not a failure of the player understanding mechanic. That's a mechanic that's not even explained. So it's just one of those things where, like, to me, that's hey, we need to explain that. Like, let's adjust that. Same thing with like player behavior as far as on maps. If you have a new player that comes in and is like, hey, this just happened, I don't even know what's going on. Well, was it explained to him properly, right? So yeah, I think that's fair.
There's something that I would like to see maybe in like the Mechwarrior mentality is a bigger use of the communication tool. Because in quick play, I've seen it at your level, but in the lower stratosphere of gamers, like me, I'm in tier 5. I'm not good. Yeah. I suck at this game, but I love it. I'm like my dad. He played GTA. He doesn't do anything. He sucks at it, but he loves it.
He just loves it.
I'm the same. He loves it.
Yeah.
I mean, I read the book. I love the book. So good. Guys, read the books. They're amazing. But afterwards, I played BattleTech, and then I was like, I want more. I want more. And I played Mechwarrior Online. Bomb. But anyways, it's either you hate it or you love it. But when you love it, you really do.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's brutal honesty. And what I would like to also bring, like I was saying, is like a disclaimer in like the, or you know, in the UI, like, hey, use your communication tools, man. It's like people, because often when I play quick play, people listen. I'm like, hey, I need 2-3 mechs to follow me. We're gonna flank them up. Let's go, let's go, let's go. And then often 2 guys follow me, and then we go, and then we flank. And dude, these are the best plays. But it's like Battlefield. I don't know if you've ever played Battlefield 2, whatever. People don't communicate. Yet it's a game made for communication.
Yeah.
Use the microphone, man.
Yeah.
Plus, the community is so fun.
Yeah.
People, it's not a toxic community. Mechwarrior Online has a gem of a community.
Yeah.
People are amazing.
Yeah, it does. Communication literally makes the difference. A lot of the times in my matches, I just drop call Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, right torso on Delta, left leg on, you know, Charlie.
Focus CT.
Yeah. Or, hey, I'm going to hold this left. You know, I'm holding Charlie 4. I'm not going to rotate. Join me if you want. And then next thing you know, people gravitate. And communication, I think, is the tough thing is sometimes you don't know if there are even comms is on. Even though it shows the notification, their audio thing may not be set. So like, yeah. Comms is definitely.
I get that. Yeah, I get that. But what I'm saying is that if we had more visibility in terms of like, hey, we have a voice IP, so you can communicate. I think it'd be something really cool because often if I don't speak in the match, nobody will speak, and I think that it's something that's missing a little bit because it's so fun. Plus, the community is not huge, so most often you're going to see the players that you used to play with. Yeah. And this is super cool.
Yeah, and it changes. Like I said, it can literally change whether you win or lose, literally.
Yeah.
But also just changes the experience. Like, oh, like, hey, that was really fun, or like, oh, hey, that worked. You know, like good.
You have that human feeling when you talk with someone, or like, I think it's super cool.
So
I think that this is something that should be increased.
This has been intriguing. Again, talking to someone that plays the game and then is designing maps using. Obviously your own knowledge, but then also leaning on the Cauldron and the community for that. You mentioned incursion game mode would not be on Polar. I said, hey, let's talk about that later. Incursion itself, obviously, this is a design focus, but it was supposed to be asymmetrical, attack, defend, and it reminded me basically of Rush. You know, basically we push up. Okay, we take the objective, or if we don't, but then if we don't, then it's game over or whatever, or if we push. To me, it always felt like, obviously, that's not what we got. We got I call it what it is, a slapped on, you know, like things are just slapped on the map. Things are slapped on the map. It has cool mechanics like the capture ability of the thing. I always just felt like the game mode, along with like faction play, it would be so interesting to pick your brain about the potentials of using incursion-like aspects. You talked about, you know, game modes earlier that were reminiscent of what I would almost see in faction. Like that's what that group experience that you're not going to get in quick play, but that's what and it would be so interesting hearing your thoughts on it. I don't know if it's for this podcast or because obviously you're not able to do anything right now. PGI is not able to do anything right now, but at least we could like talk, but like, I feel like there's a lot there that's possible. But I do feel like incursion, I've said this out loud. I think the game mode should go the wayside for now, and it may make a return later on with adjustments, and or maybe it's an aspect of now a different game mode entirely that's faction play and it's changed.
For me, what I would do with this mode would be essentially what I would like to see is an asymmetrical, like it's like basically an assault. You're assaulting a super big fortress, and in this case, if it was like this is like plans for like an expansion, I would say. Sure. Nothing is in the work for an expansion right now, and we're still focusing very much on 2 people. what I would essentially like to see if it was me personally leading this would be doing these kind of like, I would call them I don't know, mini assaults or mini campaigns where like you have like um, capture points by points where soldiers, well, not soldiers, but mechs pilots do have response points, but a limited amount. You can also influence the amount of response that they could get by destroying specific environment, specific points. So just out of my mind right now, I could say like we reproduce like the assault of like I don't know the Kurita forces against House Davion, and then like they're assaulting this super mega fortress that is inside of the cliffside. So you need to blast open the doors while like you have like these kind of like rafters where like you have the mechs that are the enemy mechs that are there. They could try also to open the door to face you toe to toe. Then you would have the inside of the fortress where you would have to move in, and then there would be like big different environments and cool stuff like that. I would like to see like incursion to become more of a tactical assault on a specific enemy, and not something where team one and team two has the same thing. It would be team one is defending, team two is attacking, and then afterwards, whoop, we flip back together, and then team two is attacking, team one is defending. Something cool like that, you know?
Yeah.
Something that would bring the lore, because I'm really lore friendly and I love that, but something that we would feel like there's a progression in it, and where player actions have an incidence on the map and how it's going to advance in itself.
Sure.
So, like I said, you could destroy, like, I don't know, an ammunition dump or a gas dump, and then what is the effect on this is that you're going to lose 3 more drop ships because you don't have the gas to fuel them up so they can go back up. So the defending team has less points that they can use in order to respond, and the attacker team has an advantage now, so they can progress, and then they can use their numbers to dwindle down the enemies. So that could be something interesting. Anything can be done, you know?
Sure.
It's just a matter of like when and how, and if we have the means for it.
Sure.
So for me, if it was only me, yes, I would love to do that, but I can't clone myself, and until then, well, you know, so we're going to do our best to do amazing maps for Reborn, but definitely I would like to see that. And like you said, it's not because we're removing, for example, Polar Highland from the incursion roster that we're going to be gradually removing completely incursion. It's only give us some time, and then we'll make sure to not lose that resource, but use it to a way that it will benefit the players in a way that's fun.
Sure.
Because we have the infrastructure for incursions. Might as well use that to create something nice.
Sure. One last question, and then I'll let you get out of here. What theme would you like to see? We have, or biome. If you were to introduce a new biome in a new map, what would it be?
Wow, that's a good question. I would. It's super difficult because when you think about it, you have so many environments that you could go for. I'm not a fan of fire environments. I actually hate lava environments because it fucks up with the heat, and I hate that. I love Polar Highland and ice maps for that, because it's like, oh man, I'm cool. I love it. I don't know if water has an effect on this, but that would be something that I would like it to do. Mech actually, or they can go underwater if they want to. It's not recommended, but I would like to maybe see at some point something where we could have kind of like a volume in which the player can be going underwater, and by volume I mean just it's like think about it as like a filled-in shoebox.
Sure.
And you, as like for example, you have the islands, and then the shoebox it's the water around the island. So basically, you could go down in the water through the coral reefs and all that stuff, and then climb up onto the outside of the thing. Of course, that would include also different changes to the weapon system. So, for example, you wouldn't be able to fire the AC-10, or maybe the AC or like the LRMs, but maybe you'll be able to fire like I don't know, your lasers. That would be
Yeah.
something that would be working. So when you're in the water, you can shoot the lasers, but when you're not in the water, you can shoot everything else. So that could
Yeah.
be cool. Like
Yeah.
you would have these fights inside of coral trenches. For me, it would be underwater. I fucking love that. That looks so cool.
I'm just stoked, man. Like your excitement, I'm so stoked to like, God dang, like you mentioned HPG, but then I'm thinking, what is this dude gonna do to terra firma? Because so I'm excited, man. I'm excited.
I'm gonna put the temperature at -30.
I'd be like, what happened here?
Yeah, it's cold now.
Like I said, you're bringing something that I think a lot of people are going to be excited for, and so I just wanted to say thank you for the hard work, but also
It's not work. I told you. For me, it's fun.
Thank you for the fun that you've been having, and I'm glad you're getting paid for your fun. And,
I'm glad too.
You know, but yeah, man, I think, you know, again, one map a month. I mean, you know, I guess one last thing, we have different variations of some of the same map. For instance, old Frozen City, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Do you plan on keeping those, or do you?
That's a good question. I've seen that question often.
Like, or do you want to just say, hey, they're still going to be in the game, private lobbies, you can go have fun, but hey, this is because like. My issue that I see with like, oh, well, keep the old canyon or keep the old polar. There's so many maps. Yeah, and then you're just like, so how do you feel about that? I guess on a personal level.
On a personal level, I think that we could have like a monthly vote from the community, something like that. You know, which map would you like to have back this month? Boom, we add it with a high probability to be on the roster that you can play. And then you would have like this month it's classic canyon or stuff like that. Okay. And you know, these are things that can be done, but of course I would like to, but that's still, again, that's not up to me. It's more up to my experience. But of course I would like to see them still in the roster. But then again, when you think about it, we currently have, I think it's 20-ish maps.
Yeah.
Now, if we modify these 20-ish maps and then we keep the old ones, that means that it's 40 maps. That means that you have one chance out of, well, actually, you have 3 chances out of 40 every time. So that really reduces it. Plus, then afterwards, you got to take account that you have 2 game modes that are offered in the bottom. So out of the 3 maps out of 40, you have still 50% chance that you're not going to get the mode you want. I don't know. I think that the best case scenario would be to bring them back as a flavor of the month. Yeah. Or, of course, keep them for private lobbies. Like if you have a 12 versus 12 guys that want, guys or girls, sure, they wanna play that. Sure, I don't see why. It's not because we're creating new stuff that we need to destroy the rest that we did. Like this is like the history of Mechwarrior. I don't want to get rid of it. Yeah. But I would definitely think about it in a way that, like, yeah, flavor of the month. That's what I would do.
Yeah,
I think it would be the best case scenario, that and private lobbies.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. Well, man, thank you for your time. Obviously, if someone's wanting to reach out to you, forums, I'm assuming it is probably the best area for that.
Reddit, the forums, I always read them, and I'm usually not afraid to reply, and don't be afraid to write a post. And if you're not happy, tell me to go burn in a fire and stuff like that. But but honestly, if you're gonna tell me to go kill myself, at least tell me why, so that I can make sure that you will want less of me killing myself next time that I'll be putting on a new map.
Gotcha. That's understandable. Give him why you're angry, so he can potentially fix it. Because maybe
exactly, because saying human. It's shit, saying it's shit doesn't tell me anything. Why is it shit?
Yeah.
Like you can't slap a kid and don't tell him why you slapped it, you know? It's like, no, don't do that. Don't put your hand on the oven. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, thank you again for doing this.
Also, well, it's my pleasure. I mean, I'm here because I want to play these maps. I want to make sure that this game still is one of the best. Well, it's the only one. Yeah. And it needs to keep on going because this game is super, super.
Yeah.
It's an amazing game.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Francois, for taking the time
out
of this.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for talking to me.
Yeah, I look forward to doing this again because we will definitely be sitting down.
Likewise.
And, talking about not only this, but the future and so forth and so on. So thank you again for doing this, man. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.